I'm glad to be here. As Marl said, I'm J.R. Williams, and I'm president of the League of World War I Aviation Historians, also known as Over the Front. And we're indeed grateful for the opportunity to share our passion for World War I aviation history with you. And I'd like to thank Marl for the invitation to be with you this evening. Now, those of you who are not familiar with our organization, let me tell you a little bit more about the League. We're about 1,000 members worldwide, and among our members are not only historians, authors, vintage aircraft owners, builders and pilots, modelers, RC flyers, and a lot of people like me, simple enthusiasts of history, aviation, and the Great War. Every quarter, each League member receives a copy of our journal Over the Front, and this is a cover of our winter issue, which is going to be delivered soon. It's still technically winter. This features a painting by an aviation artist from Chino Hills by the name of Steve Anderson, and this is a painting based on an actual event that happened where two Hansa Brandenburg float planes were attacking motor torpedo boats in the English Channel of the English Navy. And what's funny is these planes were actually built by the same company, but an earlier version was a biplane. But the late 1918 version, they had gone to the low-wing monoplane. Obviously, it was better because it gave the gunner a complete field of fire that he didn't particularly have in the biplane. But this is based on an actual incident. Each member of the League receives 4 copies of Over the Front a year, and each issue runs about 100 pages and has a number of articles that are all contributed by historians from the League. Membership in the League is $60 a year, and as I said, includes 4 issues of Over the Front. You can join by visiting our website, which is at www.overthefront.com, and I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce the League's webmistress, Bonnie Ritchie. Volunteer webmistress, which is great. So you can join us at www.overthefront.com. Also, if you're interested, I also have membership sheets that will be available afterwards. I also have some back issues of our journals, and if you would like to take one, all I ask is that you make a modest, perhaps $5 donation to the League. All proceeds from membership and all proceeds from sales of back issues of Over the Front and all donations go to the further publication of our journal. We're very proud of Over the Front, and we feel that we have the premier periodical publication for World War I aviation history in the world. Now, I'm sure there are varying degrees of knowledge about World War I aviation in this audience. And for many people, the most well-known pilot from that period is this brave Sopwith Camel pilot, seen here looking for a flat place to put his camel down among the shell holes. Don't underestimate how much influence this particular fellow had on a lot of people my age about getting us interested in finding out who the Red Baron really was. Rather, it is his adversary, a real historical figure who is the face of World War I aviation history. Manfred Albrecht Freiherr von Richthofen was born the 2nd of May, 1892 in Breslau, Upper Silesia, which was then part of Germany, is now part of Poland. And he died on April the 21st, 1918, on Morlancourt Ridge above the Somme River under circumstances which are still widely speculated upon to this day, and which we will be examining this evening. Now, Freiherr means count or knight, and so he was often called the Red Knight of Germany. The French called him Le Diable Rouge, although he actually never flew against the French, and he was World War I's leading ace with 80 confirmed victories. Here we see a photo of him preparing for a mission, standing next to his all-red Albatross D3, and this was taken at Roucourt Chateau outside of Arras, France in April of 1917, and I have had the great pleasure of visiting this site. The chateau is still there, and this alley of trees is still there as well. Now, the plane I know there's probably 1 or 2 gearheads in this crowd, so I brought along a book, and I'll read aircraft specs, I promise. So let's talk about the Albatross D3, which was a plane that led to a period of aviation that was called Bloody April, and I'll elaborate on that, but let me read you the specs on the plane. Boy, this is really small. Okay. The power plant was a 160 horsepower Mercedes D3 inline piston engine. Maximum speed was 102 miles an hour. Endurance was 2 hours. Service ceiling was 18,000 feet, or if you're metric, 5,486 meters. 29 feet 6 inch length, 24 feet height, and I believe, no, 9 foot 6 inch height and 24 feet width. Weighed 2,002 pounds, loaded, and was armed with two 7.92 or 313 caliber Spandau machine guns. Now, this plane gave the Germans absolute air superiority during a time of battle in what was called the Battle for Arras. And von Richthofen was the commander of a fighter unit that was the 1927 Yankees of air combat in World War I. And here you see a more complete picture of the Albatross D3, completely painted red. They actually had to use chalk to outline the national marking. This plane was also sesquiplaned, and that the bottom wing was about half the length of the top wing. This was a development that was put in place in the D3 from the D1 and the D2, which had equal length planes, and I think ostensibly the idea was to provide a little additional speed. Most of the men in this picture, if they weren't aces at this time, became them. Allmenroder, Wolf, von Richthofen, and von Richthofen's brother, Lothar, all scored over 20 confirmed kills in the month of April. And it was a rough year for the what was then the Royal Flying Corps. At that time in that sector, the British had 25 squadrons representing 365 aircraft, going up against 8 German squadrons representing about 90 aircraft. The British lost 241 of their 365 aircraft in 1 month of service. Yasta 11, these guys, scored 89 confirmed kills against 1 loss. And the loss was this gentleman, Sergeant Sebastian Festner, whose plane exploded as a result of being hit by anti-aircraft fire, actually on the last day of April. The 241 aircraft lost by the British represented 211 pilots and crew killed in action. As I said, this plane was painted all red, and the Flying Circus, as they call it, really kind of came into being about this time. It's for 2 reasons. One was the squadron adopted red as kind of their base color scheme. The other thing was they were very mobile. Being a small squadron at that time, they could move around the front, and wherever the high command wanted them, they could get there usually in a day's time and be flying. But I want to share with you a quote from von Richthofen's younger brother, Lothar, and this is him actually sitting down here. And you know, I meant to bring, if there's any Led Zeppelin fans in the audience, if you black this out and put Jimmy Page and those guys over here, you might recognize this picture. What was that, Led Zeppelin 2? Just took it from this. But let me share a quote with you from von Richthofen's younger brother, Lothar, about the coloration of Yasta 11. It had long been our wish to have all airplanes from our staff painted red, and we implored my brother to allow it. This is Lothar speaking about Manfred. The request was granted, for we had shown ourselves worthy of the red color by our many aerial kills. The red color signified a certain insolence. Everybody knew that. It attracted attention. Proudly we looked at our red birds. My brother's crate was glaring red. Each of the rest of us had some additional markings in other colors. We chose these colors as recognition symbols. Schaefer, and let's see, where's Schaefer? Carl Emil Schaefer is this guy right here. Schaefer, for example, had his elevator rudder and most of the back part of his fuselage painted black. Allmenroder, who's on the end here, Used white. Wolf, who is here, little guy, 5 feet tall. Used green, and I had yellow. As a yellow dragoonier, a dragoonier cavalryman, that was the appropriate color for me. And that's, one of the reasons why they were called the Flying Circus. Now, not long after this, actually in the month of May, the British were putting up bigger and bigger formations. And so what happened at that time was Jasta 11 was consolidated. Jastum is a contraction for Jagdstaffel. Jagdstaffel literally translated means hunting squadron or fighter squadron. Jasta 11 was contracted with Jastas 4, 6, and 10 to form what was called Jagd Group or Fighter Group 1, the first true air fighting wing in the German Air Force. April the 21st, 1918 is possibly, that's not, it is, the most important date in World War I aviation history. Jasta 11 JG-1 was posted at Cappy, which was a former British field, at the end of the 1918 spring offensive, which was called the Kaiserschlacht. And the thing that's nice about touring northern France is that the French have done a really good job of signage about anything, not just about the air war, but there are 4 signs in the area that von Richthofen operated in about him, and this is the first one. This is actually across the street from a chateau at Cappy, although people from my group have pretty much decided that he was sleeping on the airfield. But this field in northern France is so unchanged in Picardy and parts of France called Picardy and Artois, that you can go to these fields and look at a picture and the hedges are still the same. It's still the same plant that's kind of bordering the hedges and so on like that.